Welcome.
You're right.
Fucking.
Wow.
Woo! John, where in the world are you today?
Alicia, that is a question for you because it looks like you're in a secret, non-disclosed location. Are you willing to tell us?
I will share, just don't let the CIA know that I shared. I'm actually in Marrakech, Morocco.
Ooh. It'll be our secret. No one will know.
Just,
I'm back in the good old town of Phoenix, Arizona.
ooh, sunny Phoenix. Great. So, it seems like you and I were converging on a very similar idea, very similar topic, coincidentally. I was working on some automatic writing. I got a little text message ping that said, "Hey, homie, want to record?" And I was like, "Sure, let's do it." And I think we've got a good jumping off point. So, do you want to kick us off?
Oh yeah, no such thing as coincidences. I love that we've
Mm-mm.
been contemplating this topic for the last hour. It's really fresh. So I think we want to incorporate the concepts of attachment, connection, and alignment maybe are the three key concepts to bring in here. But it was the recognition that I'll be in a perfectly peaceful state, and what frequently causes me to just totally lose my shit and lower my perspective because I think it benefits me is when I have an expectation or an attachment to some outcome, but I don't have a strong enough belief in place to support that, and reality appears to not give me the outcome that I'm expecting, and I just completely lose my shit. It could be a job that I'm expecting, it could be a relationship I'm expecting, it could be a check I'm expecting, just so many different topics. It could even be something as stupid as a traffic expectation. I pre-paved in my meditation, seeing wide open roads. I have an expectation for it, but maybe not quite a strong enough belief in it. I get in the car, pull out of the driveway. There's a line of traffic coming both directions, and I just lose my shit in that moment.
Yeah, and I
So
think
yeah.
you kicked us off with the three ideas of attachment, connection, and alignment, but there's this other really key word for me in this, which is this idea of expectation, right? And you were talking a little bit about this idea of expectation and belief. Run me down that road.
So Abraham is really the one who keyed in on this for me. That it's really about aligning a desire and a belief so that they're parallel, congruent, and both locked in. We can have a strong desire for something,
Mhm.
say $1 million check, but getting the belief to line up to say $1 million checks fall out of the sky, and they can,
Mhm.
might be what's necessary versus I need to work for it or whatever. So if there's any wobble in the belief, it's not going to perfectly match up with the desire, and the expectation can kind of get a bit wonky. Then at that point you may think you have a strong expectation, but reality is going to show you if your belief is actually matching your expectation and being honest and true within yourself. The best example is like a grocery store. Maybe you're like, I want saltine crackers now. I have such a strong expectation and such a strong matching parallel belief in terms of saltines always being readily available at any grocery store that I'll just walk into one knowing it's going to be there. But something like the $1 million check falling from the sky will take more
Mhm.
alignment.
Yes. Yes. Um, I'm thinking of the favorite example that is often referenced is getting the easy parking spot, right? Okay, so saltine crackers, grocery store, near guarantee, right? Unless there's like an epic blizzard or a pandemic, like saltines are going to be in the grocery store, right? The fun, easy one that people like to play with is that front row parking spot, that great street parking, that whatever, right? And that one's not a guarantee, and so it's a good example for us to play with and kind of test ourselves and our abilities as creators and test our belief, right? But then it's that next level of saying, well, not only am I going to get that front row parking spot, but my Rolls Royce is going to be parked in that front row, right? And because some of us might have a belief tied to the idea of a Rolls Royce, then all of a sudden it makes that expectation feel even shakier, right? Like even like, oh gosh, what are all the steps? How am I possibly going to get there to have that Rolls Royce to park in that front row parking spot? And um, so I think it is one of these things where, and I can see for myself in certain areas of my life, like the belief and the outcomes are just so evidently aligned, right? There's certain things that just come so easily for me, and then there's these other topics that it's just like I say I have this expectation of good outcomes and hope, right? But hope isn't what creates. It's belief that creates. And so um it's this idea that I've been playing and actually reflecting it more and more inward, right? And really focusing on the inside and like not looking at the outside right now, right? We had a conversation a couple of weeks ago where we talked about the idea that the thought and the experience itself are they're both manifestations, right? And it's like the thought is the moment before the experience, or well, several days or weeks or months or whatever. But if I'm really hyper focused on that thought, that type of manifestation, that level of manifestation, right? And really fine tuning that and not constantly looking externally for that validation, not constantly testing myself with the front row parking spot. Did I get it today? Did I not? Right? And really actually cleaning up what is going on inside, right? You said a long time ago to me, and it has stuck with me, that it's all an inside job, right? That this is, as Abraham says, this is the work. It's the inside job, and I keep on looking up and looking out for that validation, that proof. Yet the proof is it's still inside my head. It's still with the thoughts that I'm receiving. So I don't know. What are your thoughts you're receiving right now?
100%. Abraham's idea of taking score too soon.
Mm,
I prepaid no traffic 5 minutes before, and then all of a sudden I'm pulling out in traffic, or pulling out of the driveway and finding traffic there because it's so fresh on my mind. The thought was just there, but the belief is obviously revealing itself to not be as solid as I perceived it potentially could be. And that's the moment of completely losing my shit, as I say, losing my mind, triggering. It's
mm-hmm,
just that idea of perhaps taking score too soon. If we go back to broad basics, just the broadest perspective we can take, Bashar's 5 laws, right? We exist. Everything is happening here and now. There is no time, or as Abraham would say, everything is timing. It would mean that reality we can envision does exist. It is experienceable by all of us. It's just an idea of when in time it's going to come. So that's where it like gets a little slippery, like insisting it comes now, but the insistence with a strong belief would be
mm-hmm,
the experience versus insistence without the belief, or maybe discovering in the moment you don't have the belief why it's not coming specifically
mm-hmm,
now.
mm-hmm. Okay, so we're gonna
But
we're
the trick, I was going to say, the trick for me is recognizing what's happening almost every time I choose to drop my perspective. I was contemplating for the last hour before we started this call. It's that exact sequence that's happening to make me lose my shit and realize this is what's happening, and I'm excited to recognize it more in the moment. Okay, I'm just taking score too soon. I'm seeing right now my belief is not as strong as I thought it would be, and a belief is just a thought I keep thinking. I can continue to practice the vibration of this thought, of this belief, to re-solidify it and then make it an experience. And as part of Bashar's formula, like release the attachment to the outcome, because then I'm requiring the outside to validate it, like you're
mm-hmm,
saying.
mm-hmm. There's something there with what you're saying with regards to belief, right? And the belief, right? I'm hearing you, or if I can, I guess summarize. we're looking in the environment for evidence, for the proof, for the mirror to reflect back. It's not reflecting back. So then it's this question of like, okay, I need to keep working on my belief of what is, the belief matching the desire. But I wonder if it's actually an opportunity to go digging through some of those limiting beliefs that might still be lingering, right? That are keeping that that desire from actually manifesting. So let's take the spotlight and shine it really bright on a real life situation for me. So, been in a relationship with somebody, and I've ended this relationship. And the writing that I was doing when I heard from you was around this idea, and it actually is an Abraham prompt, which I love so much, which says, what is it that I'm thinking about you that is keeping me from who I truly am? Right. And in doing this writing, I was realizing that I was putting additional expectations on this person because of a role that this person was playing in my life. And I I recognize I kind of feel this internal struggle around this idea of, were my expectations too high or too much for this person? Yet at the same time, in my reality, I have friends and family saying, girl, you need to raise your expectations, right? You can have higher expectations. You can have, greater potential partners, etc. And so then I'm realizing, like, wait, I'm like, here, reality is reflecting these two messages to me. One, a question coming internally slash from my former partner, my expectations are too high. But then two, you know, being told that my expectations aren't high enough, and then realizing, like, oh wait, I'm tearing myself apart right now, like I'm letting reality tear me apart. And so then I think that this is where this idea of coming to beliefs is about. Do I believe I can have those super high expectations and have that in a relationship and find that in a partner? And apparently not, right? Apparently not, because I'm having this question of, like, well, were they too high? Was I expecting too much? Was I demanding too much? Right? And so that shows a wobble in my belief, and therefore my beliefs are not up to speed with that desire. So just I get to go digging through some limiting beliefs on that front.
It's a cool example because it's personable and everyone can relate to a relationship with someone. And it's really cool, just to step back for a second and say, it's really cool how you can look at this situation from a broader perspective and look at the belief components, the expectation components, instead of losing yourself in the illusion of, like, this person, me, like thinking we're all these separate bodies and this person's doing this to me, right? The initial divergence in consciousness, victim creator, and everything spiders out from that initial decision. Am I the creator of my own reality, or am I the victim of my reality? Neither being right or wrong, again, just two paths. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that we get to explore on this show the creator path more, because that's just the direction I'm excited to go. I spent 20 years going down the victim path. It's a wonderful path. But anyway, as you were speaking, I was seeing Bashar saying, because reality is unconditional love, it
Mm-hmm.
must offer you
Mm-hmm.
essentially every option in every moment
Yes.
as a selectable truth.
Yep.
I recognize Abraham bandwidth idea very clearly and see it to be true. We're only perceiving such a big bandwidth at any time. So the options, they're truly infinite, but in any moment, to have a limited experience, which is what this is and is wonderful, we have that limited bandwidth. But it's cool that you recognize I have two different perspectives coming at me, and there's a continuum of
Mm-hmm.
perspectives between the two, but there's two very distinct perspectives. And recognizing just the sheer fact that I'm tearing myself apart by going back
Mm-hmm.
and forth between these two perspectives. And the thought that comes to mind, or that I'm hearing from a lot of people, Abraham, Bashar, Neville Goddard, even Will Smith, I was listening to an interview with him, and he's like, you just need to fucking decide. Just
Mm-hmm.
decide. like that idea of stop tearing yourself apart, because both of them are true, and
Mm,
decide what you want. And in that decision is where the subtle nuance of knowing yourself and how confident you are in establishing a new belief would be to come in play. Because I'd love to be a billionaire. And to some extent, I do believe $1 billion check could fall out of the sky tomorrow from unknown means for me. But am I truly able to make that leap in one day and decide I'm going to be a billionaire tomorrow and know my beliefs are going to line up with it? If I truly am honest with myself, I'd say probably not. But
mhm,
like $1 million seems pretty tangible in today's world. Like $1 million in credit card swipes happen every fraction of a second. Like
mhm.
everyone's a
Easy.
millionaire,
Yeah.
so that belief is easier to reach. But it's cool that you can step back and assess both ends of the stick and what you want.
Yeah. Um, as you were finishing your thought, I was coming to, Bashar's idea of reality is so unconditional, right? And my I do just realize this. My belief around that unconditionality is it's insidious, right? When I have the negative beliefs, when I have the negative, even just like the negative twinge, right? Because reality has to reflect it back to me. It has to reflect it back to me. And I need to understand, Alicia, that it's not insidious, it's perfection, it is consistency, right? And so that's where like really turning it into that inside job of just scrutinizing, not scrutinizing. That's a rough word. But just really listening to what it is that the human mind is receiving, perceiving, whichever it is, right? And assessing, do I want that to be true for me or not? Does that have to be true for me or not, right? And even just bringing awareness to my current understanding of truth, I think can help to clear up a lot of what I'm experiencing in reality too.
It's a very empowering perspective of both yourself and actually the other person, because from that perspective what I see is the people who are the rascals, as Abraham would say, or the greatest instigators, the greatest triggers for me, are actually the most brave and loving and beautiful
Mm,
beings, because they're willing to show me the parts of myself that perhaps I don't want to see or
mm-hmm,
acknowledge as
mm-hmm.
true. And what a superhero to step in and be so brave as to stand in front of me and trigger me for my own benefit to discover the beliefs. And that fucking perspective makes me feel good about myself, and it makes me feel maybe even better or equally good about the other people who are involved
Mm-hmm.
in that. It
Yeah,
takes no effort at all to reflect positive beliefs to me. I'm going to love that person, that object, that circumstance immediately, because it's reflecting it. But the true heroes are the one who are like, hey, yeah, I got a negative belief here, or you got an out of alignment belief that you could choose to be more true.
absolutely. No, and I love that you're saying this. I am I'm actually reminded of something I wrote just over 6 months ago to the same person, um, where I'm saying to him, I've finally let you go. It's been a winding road, and I've realized that it's me keeping me from what I truly want in a relationship and hanging on to this reflection, right? And I am able to thank him in this, right? In terms of thank you for playing that role so clearly, um, what he contributed. I appreciated his participation in playing that role perfectly. And he helped me fine tune. He helped me fine tune things, and he was so good at it. He was so good at it. I let him play that role again for me a few months later. so, so here
I
we
like
are.
Bashara's idea that experience and consciousness ascension is a bit of a wave, but it's a upwards wave.
It
So
is.
sometimes we it appears that we're looping back around to similar circumstances, but then if we look objectively, we'll recognize, wait, I'm not as emotionally involved as last
Mm-hmm.
time. I'm finding greater and greater perspectives of myself and someone else. and I may have caused this circumstance to come back around again to show me how much I've changed.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it in my life happen now where a person will float away and then come back as a new personality structure. They
Yep.
look like the same person. I remember them being the same person in terms of physical appearance, but in personality structure, they are not the same person at all.
Mm-hmm.
And some other channels who are more on the peripheral of what we listen to suggest that what everyone truly wants to be is unconditional love for everyone else. So if you're putting out a new frequency, what I mean, essentially, if everyone is a mirror, they have no choice. But from a slightly different perspective, they want to give you what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's wanting to give you what you want. The question is step three, can you put yourself in the
Mm-hmm.
emotional frequency of having already experienced or actively are experiencing that circumstance before you see it with the five senses in order for it to be? Because everyone's just a vibrational mirror. This is all occurring in
Mm-hmm.
our own consciousness. I'm a figment of your imagination, so I can be anything you tell me to be
Mm-hmm.
with your vibrational output.
Likewise.
Deep.
Super deep. So I want to bring it back real quick before we tie out for this episode to a couple other words that you had mentioned at the beginning. The idea of attachment and connection and alignment. And for me, whenever I hear that word attachment, I get a little there's something there for me, right? There's something energetically there for me, especially when people talk about this idea of non-attachment, right? And for me, the word attachment is very close to the word connection. And so when I people hear people talk about non-attachment, I feel it as like a disconnection, which for me connection is really important. Connections with friends, connection with my pets, with the environment, etc. Um, and so I tend not to use that word attachment in my world, and that's where I kind of gravitate more to this idea of expectation and softening and easing expectation versus attachment. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on that and how do these words attachment, expectation, connection, how do they kind of all land for you?
Beautiful. For me, especially since I've been road tripping and traveling alone the last 2 months, I've recognized how important connection is to me.
Mm,
That idea of seeing others as myself and
yeah.
having what I would say is it's not a desire, it's not a need, it's built into the structure of existence itself. Bashar's third law, the one is the all are the one. We can deny the idea that we're inherently connected, but that's never going to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
We are one. So it seems that every activity that brings us together in
Mm-hmm.
some idea, it could be through some experience, it could be through some resonance, it could just be through appreciation and recognition of the other. That is the structure of existence itself,
Mm-hmm.
and also the structure of a positive belief, according to Bashar, and it's built in. So I, like you, am really coming back around to recognizing how important it is to embrace the connection and lean into it in this physical experience. Attachment, the term attachment, what I'm recognizing through this discussion, which is really cool, is I'm defining it as expectation without belief being equally solidified. And
Okay.
that's why it doesn't
Okay.
feel good to
Ooh,
me.
I like
If
that.
I have a,
Hold on, let me say that back to
yeah,
you. Attachment
yes,
could be that expectation without the matching belief, getting
yes.
attached
And
to the
that's
outcome without having this supporting belief of it.
because that's where it would when I see the Eastern perspectives of non-attachment, it's almost based on the perspective of not being a fully conscious creator in your physical reality.
Mm,
I see a little bit of this juxtaposition between like an effortless state of being, knowing I'm all that is and everything's cool, and then this idea of law of attraction of wanting to really play in my physical reality,
mm-hmm.
this yin and yang, everything and nothing. surrender and focus. Like it's the balance between the two, and they both are very real and exist for me. It's what perspective I'm taking at the time. So
Mm,
you could go to an Eastern perspective and say, I'm all that is, everything's cool, I can chill in peace. But I've spent so much time in that now, I realize this state of being is like, hey, let's go play. Like, we chose this physical experience for the
mm-hmm.
law of attraction to become a
Totally.
conscious creator. So if you're playing the game of sitting in consciousness, non-attachment would be cool because you're not really going to have strong expectations. You're not intending for specific physical experiences and outcomes, and that's cool. If you shift over to the opposite side and you want to be a conscious creator, you would create an expectation that's so strong that it has to be.
It
The creator
is.
of your own
It
reality.
is.
You can saltines, right? It is. Saltines are at the Safeway down the street.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you could, if nothing has built-in meaning, everything's my own consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
anything is everything, then the parking spot, the Rolls Royce, the whatever the hell you want to say is the saltines, the perfect partner. All of it is just potentially the saltines.
Mm-hmm.
So I see from this melded perspective, attachment or non-attachment just being that it's the recognition, shit, my belief isn't strong enough,
Mm-hmm.
and then the decision, do I want to play more with my belief to get this in alignment,
Mm-hmm.
or is it not a low enough hanging fruit? I have other lower hanging fruits. Like
Mm-hmm.
Abraham says, go for the easier existing matches. You've been wanting money your whole life, that's going to be your first focus of law of attraction and play with law of attraction. Maybe pick something easier and then circle
Mm-hmm.
around to these bigger belief structures that have multiple elements within it.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. And I think if for me, I've seen as I knock out some of those lower hanging fruit limiting beliefs that it starts to unlock things across all topics, all subjects. So, um, this is really good. There was one last thing I wanted to say on this, which was around the idea of playing and playing with our physical reality, right? And deciding. We get to decide, right? If the Buddhist non-attachment way of playing the game is how you want to roll, that is yours. I choose playing. I choose experimentation. I choose expansion. So for me, I'm choosing to be that proactive type of creator. I did want to share briefly. I am listening to Pete Holmes's book. Pete Holmes, the comedian. I think the book is called Comedy, Sex, God. Those three words. I don't remember in which order. And he's at this point in this book where he grew up super religious and now he's hitting his atheist moment. And he was having a discussion with two other atheist comedians, and he's like, "Why don't we just steal these crackers at the unattended little mini mart in the hotel?" And Pete's like, "If nobody's watching, if God isn't watching, then why not steal it?" And I really loved the response that one of the atheist comedians said was, "Well, if we steal the crackers, then the person on duty might get in trouble and then they could have consequences. And so the reason why we don't steal, right? Unless it's truly necessary, whatever. The reason why we don't steal is because all we have is each other, right? And so Pete's point was, since the atheist doesn't have a source outside of themselves in terms of like a power, a god, a whatever, they do really depend on the idea of all of us humans just kind of in this crazy reality trying to figure it out. And so the reason why, they still have, I guess, a guidance system of sorts is this idea of like us lowly humans, all we have is each other, so we got to take care of each other. And I just thought that that was kind of a really beautiful perspective, and that is part of the perspective that I choose to also keep in the creation of my reality. Is like, it's that connection piece, right? Connection is my mirror, and I want that, and it's a fun thing to play with in my reality. And so I just really appreciated that this atheist, kind of seemingly very different notion actually applies very beautifully to what I'm thinking about and playing with, and was a key part of our topic today, connection.
It applies so well. And what a cool definition for an atheist to express. You hear some of these broad terms and all these beliefs that we each have within us come, and then you recognize new expressions or definitions within these broad concepts, and that
Mm-hmm.
is such a cool one and such an empowering one.
Yeah.
And I love that idea. And as you were speaking too, I was hearing Bashar's concept. If you know you're the creator of your own reality, you know you can focus and have a desire or an expectation match with a belief. I want saltines and I can attract saltines. Why would you need to take some physical action that doesn't feel good
Mm-hmm.
because you have a belief system about stealing, which makes perfect sense? It's a
Mm-hmm.
great belief system to have. So we all know our objects stay where we leave them.
Mm-hmm.
But we would know, hey, saltines are going to come to me in some way, shape, or form in some point in the near future. And I can like let go of maybe how or when. Or if I'm that fucking good, I can say how and when
Mm-hmm.
they're going to come. um, but yeah,
I love
and as you
this.
were speaking before too, I was thinking, oh, this guy I met in California when I was doing jet suit training. Oh, coolest guy ever. He has a bunch of planes, and there was some plane he really wanted. He could only find one in the country, and it was at some museum. And he went to the museum and asked, "Hey, can I buy this plane?" And they're like, "No." And he's like, "Pay this insane amount of money." They were like, "No." He's like, "Even more money." They were like, "No." And he said to the guy, "All right, like I respect that because I like this plane so much, I wouldn't let go of it either." But he goes, I'm telling you right now, sometime, some way, this plane is going to wind up being mine. This exact plane. Maybe I'm going to buy this museum. Maybe this is going to happen. That's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm deciding right now, and I'm telling you, this plane is going to be mine at some point. And he like walked away and totally let it go. And I'm forgetting the details of the story because I'm just remembering the feeling and getting waves of goosebumps as he went through a series of events of how it wound up coming into his possession, and that recognition of deciding
Mm-hmm.
with no wobble in your belief system and just feeling, oh, I can like feel the resonance.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah,
I love it. It's a
really
perfect
animal.
example too of how he had the desire, he had the very clear intention, and then he let it rest, and then it came to be. That's perfect. Well, I in the next 24 hours, I'm really excited to hear about all of the encounters that you have with saltines, and I will do the same because clearly they're going to be in our vibrational escrow, very active.
And one of my favorite foods, by the way, that and plain spaghetti with maybe just a little butter on it. The blandest foods, most people say, there's so much flavor in them for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I look forward to saltines raining down.
I can't wait to hear about it. Okay, I'm feeling satisfied. How are you feeling?
Magnificent. Do I fist bump up and you fist bump down, or is it the other way?
You go down and I go up. Wait, here. Okay. No coconut this time, but she'll be back in a very soon episode.
But our guest star, guest
Okay.
guest star,
Thanks for tuning in to Right
fucking
Now. Bye.